Hello, and welcome to our virtual public meeting for Arlington County's Vision Zero Action Plan. Today's meeting is part of our second phase of public engagement, where we are focused on sharing and collecting data on transportation safety issues around the county. My name is Christine Baker, and I'm the project manager for the Action Plan and the Vision Zero coordinator at Arlington's Transportation Engineering and Operations Bureau. Let's get started. So first, we're going to walk you through the tools that we're using for tonight's virtual public meeting. Tonight's meeting uses Microsoft Teams Live. We welcome your questions throughout the presentation, and my colleagues Nate Graham, Dan Neighbors, Sam Murray, and Henry Dunbar are all online, and they're ready to answer and respond to you as needed. To submit a question, please enter it into the live event Q&A window. You can see where that window is by following the instructions on your screen now, and we'll be taking questions throughout the presentation through that Q&A window. So we have time for additional questions at the end, but if you have thoughts during the presentation, put them in here. Following this presentation, we'll also be opening up our feedback form on Engage Arlington, the county's online public engagement platform. You can find it at the link on our final slide, or by visiting engage.arlingtonva.us. If you're not comfortable leaving your comments in either of those places, or you know someone who might be less comfortable with online engagement tools, we also have a call-in number, which is there to answer the online engagement questions. You can call 833-459-2289, and you'll be connected to a scripted phone system where you can provide your feedback. We hosted a version of this online public meeting in Spanish yesterday evening, which was recorded and will be available to view on our website. Please share that link to the Spanish public meeting with anyone who you know that would prefer to tune in Spanish. If you have any further questions about this phase of engagement or Vision Zero in Arlington, please reach out to me or Nate Graham, our public engagement specialist for the Action Plan. Tonight's meeting will start with a short overview of Vision Zero and our goals for Arlington County's Vision Zero Action Plan. We'll update you on the new schedule for developing the Vision Zero Action Plan and talk about what action on safety really looks like. Since our last public engagement checkpoint in February, a lot has changed. This engagement was originally scheduled for May and June of 2020, but was postponed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. However, our team continued to make progress on several key components of the action plan. We've done a thorough analysis of our crash data, and tonight we'll share what we've learned so far about our safety issues and needs. But we also know that their crash reports only tell us part of Arlington's transportation story. So we want to hear from you about the safety issues in Arlington that may not show up in our data. If you're just tuning into the action plan process or need a quick refresher, here's a brief summary of Vision Zero in Arlington. The county board adopted a resolution committing to Vision Zero last summer. Vision Zero is a public commitment to eliminating all serious injuries and deaths on our transportation network. There are over 40 cities and communities in the United States who've made this commitment, including some of our neighbors like Montgomery County, City of Alexandria, and the District of Columbia. And we are now creating an action plan that will guide us through our first 5 years as a Vision Zero community. The action plan will include our goals for transportation safety and the actions necessary to create the safe transportation network we must achieve. This is our project timeline for delivering a draft action plan to the county board for vote. We've had to adjust the dates on this since our last engagement checkpoint due to the pandemic. Our updated timeline calls for a delivery of the draft action plan for public comment in early 2021, with a final draft action plan to the board by late spring. Our first engagement checkpoint in January and February this year focused on our community goals and values for the Vision Zero program in Arlington. We asked for your feedback on the draft goals as we developed internally and focus on how you define safe transportation. Based on nearly 7,000 comments we received back from over 600 people, here are the refined goals that will form the basis of the draft action plan. Our goals understand the importance that Arlington County's Vision Zero program will focus on all modes, will put safety first, will be transparent and accountable, will apply data to make decisions on safety, will be collaborative because safety impacts everyone, and will be equitable to ensure that no one in Arlington is disproportionately affected by crashes. If you'd like to learn more about our Vision Zero goals and how we reach them, visit the project website listed below. We have a short video and a 2-page infographic that provides a more detailed summary of the Phase 1 engagement effort. So what are the kind of actions that can make our transportation network safer? What actions will help reduce the number of serious and fatal crashes? Vision Zero action may involve infrastructure improvements, meaning we'll identify safety issues and address them through road design. For example, infrastructure improvements might include adding no turn on red signs at intersections where it's difficult to see oncoming traffic, or identifying locations where drivers not often yield and add yield to pedestrian signage to remind drivers that they must yield to people walking. Or we could add signage that shows driver speeds compared to the speed limit. These type of signs help reduce the number of drivers going over the speed limit. In areas where trucks or cars frequently block the bike lane, a Vision Zero action might be switching the parking and the bike lane positions so that people biking can travel safely without having to weave around vehicles and doors. And one last example of how Vision Zero can transform our roadways is by designing crossings so that they are shorter, or by adding flashing lights in locations where they might be hard to see a pedestrian or a bike crossing. Our Vision Zero action plan will also consider changing our policies and examining how we can integrate transportation safety into our day-to-day work to prioritize projects that reduce crashes and serious injuries above others. Vision Zero will include our maintenance processes or set policies that will more effectively maintain safe travel patterns during construction projects. We'll also ingrain safety in the funding process. For example, locations with higher numbers of crashes or close calls could move to the top of the list for construction funding. The Vision Zero program is about bridging gaps and forming partnerships. We will work across departments and communities to improve information, education, and outreach, so everyone knows how they can contribute to making our transportation system safer. For example, we will enhance our community programs like the basic classes offered by the county or infant car seat checks offered by the police department. We'll work with APS to teach kids how to travel safely at a young age. We'll work with companies like Uber, Lyft, scooter companies, and others to ensure these companies operate more safely within our county. We also expect to have conversations with people in the community from all different backgrounds and perspectives so we can learn about safety issues you see and encounter every day. These types of focus group conversations will help us identify and address common concerns or barriers to traveling safely in Arlington. The neat thing about Vision Zero is that it not only creates a plan for making Arlington streets and trails safer, but it also establishes a way to track and report how we're measuring up to those goals. Once the Vision Zero action plan is in place, we'll have a dashboard on the county website so you can see and review recent crash data. We'll also publish a report every year listing the things that we've done to work towards or accomplish each action item set forth in our action plan. And we will improve your ability to report safety issues. We know it can be confusing when to report an issue and how to report it on the county website. So we'd like to create a one-stop shop for you to be able to easily provide that feedback and get a timely response from county staff. Since February, the project team has been working on a deep dive into our transportation safety data. The data we have access to is primarily from police reports recorded by the Arlington County Police Department or Virginia State Police officers when they respond to a crash. It's an important source of information, but not a complete picture of transportation safety. To move from a reactive safety program to a proactive safety program like Vision Zero, we need to be able to understand and address safety issues before they result in a serious injury or a death. Unreported crashes, near misses, or close calls, and your experiences are other factors that could help with proactive safety, but they are harder to track. That's why we made them the focus of this second phase of engagement. And we'll cover that later in tonight's program. But first, we'll show you what we've learned so far. Using the police report data, our team reviewed all critical crashes, those resulting in serious or fatal injuries to one or more people involved in the 3-year period from 2017 to 2019. There were 178 critical crashes in Arlington during that time period, out of a total of 7,550 reported crashes. When we focused our analysis on just those critical crashes, we learned that while crashes involving pedestrians make up only about 5% of all crashes, pedestrian crashes make up almost a quarter of critical crashes and over half of fatal crashes. This confirms that when a pedestrian is involved in a crash, their injury is much more likely to be severe. Similarly, motorcycles make up only 1% of all crashes, but over 13% of serious crashes. Bicyclists made up about 2% of all reported crashes, but 8% of serious crashes. So it's important that our Vision Zero program focuses on these vulnerable road users like pedestrians, bicyclists, motorcyclists, because they're all more likely to sustain a serious or fatal injury if there is a crash. There are some common factors involved in critical crashes. Only about 8% of all crashes involved alcohol, but almost half of fatal crashes involved alcohol, showing that drinking and driving has a large impact on the severity of a crash. While there are fewer people on the road at night, we also found that over half of fatal crashes occurred after dark. Speeding and turns were also common circumstances that played a role in a serious or fatal crash. All this information helps us understand where to prioritize our efforts to reduce the number of severe or fatal crashes in the county. So we then map these serious and fatal crashes across the county. Based on the location of these critical crashes, we identified what Vision Zero safety professionals call a high injury network, the corridors where critical crashes are concentrated. In Arlington, our high injury network represents just 7% of over 555 miles of roadway in Arlington, but these corridors saw 78% of all serious and fatal crashes reviewed in our research. Some of these key corridors include highways like I-66, I-395, and US 50, roads with high volumes and speeds and owned and maintained by the state of Virginia. Arterial streets like sections of Glebe Road and Lee Highway, which are also owned and maintained by the state, and then other arterial roadways that the county maintains, like Columbia Pike, 4 Mile Run, and sections of Wilson Boulevard, Carlin Springs Road, Washington Boulevard, 10th Street North, and Walter Reed Drive. In addition to the high injury network, we also mapped our data to identify common locations where critical crashes were reported. For example, there were a lot of reported left turn related crashes on Glebe Road, which may be due to intersection layout. Another example was a concentration of reported bike crashes in the Clarendon area, which may be due to high volumes of bicyclists and gaps in bicycle infrastructure there. By looking at the conditions that result in clusters of certain types of crashes, we can make preemptive or systemic changes to other places in the transportation network with similar conditions, which will prevent these types of crashes in the future. Arlington County also conducts an annual analysis of hotspots. These are locations with high concentration of crashes. Hotspots are identified for vehicle, bike, and pedestrian crashes. County staff review each location and add safety improvements that will reduce crashes at those locations. While the hotspot program does not focus specifically on serious or fatal injuries, it allows county staff to reduce the overall number of crashes and thus the likelihood of a crash that is severe. So we've shared what we know from our existing sources of transportation safety data, but we know there's a lot more to the story here. We will create our action plan based on the data we just presented and the data we hope to collect through this engagement, and that's where we need your help. This new phase of engagement is focused on learning more about traffic safety issues that don't appear in the police reports. Ultimately, the actions we recommend in the Vision Zero action plan have to make a difference for the people who use our roads, sidewalks, trails, and transit services every day. We need your help to make sure our plan fits the reality for the people who walk, bike, roll, scoot, take transit, and drive in Arlington. We want to hear about the circumstances and places where you have felt unsafe or experienced a close call while traveling here. We developed an engagement form to gather your feedback and concerns about traveling in Arlington. Part of this feedback will include using an interactive map to help create a location-based record of safety issues based on your experiences. We can compare the map you create with the ones we have built using crash data and look for similarities between the two. This will help us take actions and prevent critical crashes before they occur, and that is what Vision Zero is all about. So here's how you can provide your feedback for this phase of public engagement. You can visit the project website and fill out the feedback form, including the new map tool. The new map tool comes at the end of the feedback form. And the other option is to call our comment line at 833-459-2289 and follow the prompts. This is a great option for people who might not feel comfortable with online engagement, and we encourage you to really share this widely. All of our engagement options are available in English and Spanish. We're taking your feedback from today through October 30th by phone and online. You can also sign up to receive email updates about Vision Zero and the action plan process on our project website, transportation.arlingtonva.us/vision-0. We're now ready for your questions. So please submit them in the chat box in your window. Again, you can see the graphic on the screen that shows you how to get there if you haven't accessed it already. There are folks from the project team who are joining me this evening and will work to answer your questions. And those staff include Henry Dunbar, the Director of Active Transportation Operations, Nate Graham, Vision Zero Public Engagement Specialist, Sam Murray, Transportation Data Specialist, and Dan Neighbors, Transportation Design Engineer Supervisor. So we'll do our best to get to as many questions as possible, but if we don't get to yours, please email us and we'll respond as soon as we are able. And we'll provide an email address in the chat box, I think.
All right, thank you, Christine. This is Nate Graham. I'm the Public Engagement Specialist working on the Vision Zero program and one of the folks here answering your questions tonight. Once again, we're going to just backtrack real quick. If you want to submit your questions, go ahead and follow the instructions here on the screen. And we're going to start off with a question posed earlier on in the presentation about speed cameras. So, question from Dana Bress: Arlington County should work with neighboring communities to get legislative authority for speed cameras. How do you see the Vision Zero process working to accomplish this? And so I'm going to throw that out there for Dan and Christine to answer.
Well, I'll start off for Christine. This is Dan. Thanks for the question, Dana. I appreciate that. We work with the police in identifying locations where there's speed cameras, where we and those are posted at location. We work with the police on doing it on identifying areas where there's enforcement that's needed. In terms of legislation for speed cameras, that's something that's come up with the most recent legislation in July that was approved, and we're trying to identify locations where we need targeted enforcement with police. So this is something that we're continuing to work on with law enforcement.
Yeah, and I can add to that, Dana, we work in a group monthly with our the regional jurisdictions, and that includes Alexandria. So Alexandria and Arlington coordinate quite a bit in terms of pushing different legislative agendas forward down in Richmond. So that's something that you know, we do talk to some of our neighboring jurisdictions and try to push forward different legislation that enables us to be able to do more things. Like right now, speed cameras are legal in Virginia in work zones and in school zones, and that was what recently passed in July. So we haven't had much time to start selecting locations and figuring out how exactly we can apply that, but that's on our radar. And you know, we're always looking to be able to add to our toolbox of things that we can use to help reduce speed. So you know, we're looking forward to continuing to pursue this. Thanks.
And I'll just add one more thing to that, because I think part of the question might be on photo enforcement. And photo enforcement occurs, we put photo enforcement up currently, and that's a program where we evaluate photo enforcement based off of crashes that might be related to red light running. And that's something we work with the police on. And that's something that we'll continue to work with the police on, and identifying locations based off the crash data that we're seeing. So that's something that we see continuing, and it might evolve under Vision Zero.
All right, thank you guys both for the answer on that. I think the next question we're going to go to is beginning to address incidents or issues that are not captured from VDOT data. They are holding up an example of drivers driving on the wrong side of the road, I'm assuming in which that did not result in a crash. But I think this is a good way of introducing the idea of how do we, you know, for a data-driven program like a Vision Zero program, how are we going to improve our data collection practices and become more proactive as a Vision Zero community in addressing safety issues before they result in a serious injury or a death?
That's a great question. So we currently use VDOT data, which captures any crash that resulted in an injury or property damage over $1,500 in damage. So that doesn't capture everything, but we have been coordinating more with our local police, Arlington Police Department, to get their call for service data, which will include anything that is under that monetary threshold, as well as just calls they receive for incidents. So that will give us a much bigger picture about what's going on. That's as far as what VDOT is not capturing. So we're looking to create that, expand our database using the data from Arlington Police, and then at the same time we're in this new phase of engagement, we have a map available online where you can pinpoint areas that feel unsafe, or you might have had a close call, and that's the kind of information we're excited to be having access to, so that way we can kind of understand where some issues might be popping up that we're not seeing in our data. So an effort like this, I know it's a one-time exercise at this point, but we want to have our channels open in the future through the Vision Zero programming, enabling folks to tell us about their safety issues in a streamlined way. And that way, we not only have our data sources from police, but we also have the community eye as well in that picture.
All right, we've had a couple of questions about data there. I think that answer nicely sums that up. I want to jump really quickly to a question about a different part of data, which would be how do we collect data on, for instance, cars and trucks parking in bike lanes. Would that be something that we'd be open to new ways of collecting that data? I think it's a good example of things that we know contribute to unsafe conditions, but don't necessarily result in a crash. And how do we better record things like that to make sure we're maintaining a safe built environment?
Well, I can start with that. One of the things, the reason we do communication is to get that feedback from the community to figure out what the issues are, what are the needs. And so part of this process that we're engaging in with Vision Zero, the clickable map, we want to hear those types of things from everybody. What are the things that you see that are being a hindrance to people walking, biking, driving, taking transit, any mode? So that's where the clickable map, I think, really comes in handy. And through other projects, we do outreach too, to really get what how people see the streets. So we encourage you to use that map, because that helps give another layer to the data that we already have.
Okay, so a good question about the action plan at the end of this process. Could you please describe the decision-making process for prioritizing and implementing Vision Zero related projects? What approaches will be utilized to ensure equitable distribution of projects within the county? That is a great question.
Nate, can you repeat that, please?
So I've just popped it into the published section of the Q&A. The question is, could you please describe the decision-making process for prioritizing and implementing Vision Zero related projects? What approaches will be utilized to ensure that equitable distribution of projects within the county? And I'll sort of lead in on this by saying that this is actually one of the things that we're working on right now as part of this engagement, is learning more about the locations of those places and the similarities that exist through your feedback. So please do share the engagement that's going on right now. But the other thing I think I'll add to this before I hand it over to you, Dan, is that the development of that decision-making process is very much a part of this action plan.
And this is Christine. I'm sorry, I was on mute. But I think this is a great question, and I think we're still working on a lot of this as we craft our action plan. This is obviously this is at the heart of the Vision Zero program, and we want safety needs to really be ingrained as a priority in everything that we do in the county, in day-to-day activities, in the way we rank our projects, in the way we decide to fund those projects. So we are thinking of ways that we can add metrics like number of crashes, into ways that we, determine if a project, really needs an improvement. And I think also having the awareness of our high injury network now, knowing where we see a lot of our crashes, where there's a disproportionate amount of crashes, that will help us to ensure that we, reach these high priority corridors first. And it also, I think, will help us distribute projects where they're most needed throughout the county. And it's going to be a lot of collaboration. We've already been collaborating more than we ever have, I think, across different departments on transportation issues, including speaking a lot with people in public health, and that's going to help us increase our outreach, and it'll also increase our awareness of some of the disparities that are in Arlington County. So that will certainly be brought into the process as we talk about projects, as we talk about anything from a small quick build project to something very big. And Dan, I'll let you tack on to that. Thanks.
I think you covered it pretty well, Christine. I'll just add that the data that you presented in terms of how we look at crashes, the high injury network, which you just noted, also looking at the systemic types of issues, and those are things that we see we need to try to address more broadly. Those ways are kind of that first level of what we would do in a process of prioritization. And part of what we're doing is to figure out other ways to help define that process. That's the point of Vision Zero.
Thanks, Dan. We're going to jump to a question directly related to this engagement. Can you describe the actions that will result after analysis of the clickable map? What will happen next?
So we are going to take the clickable map and overlay it with our crash data. That includes hotspots, that includes the high injury network, that includes the findings from the systemic analysis. And we're going to look to see where there are gaps between the two sources. So that's something that we're going to be spending a lot of time on, and trying to see where there is perceived safety versus where we're seeing crashes. And then I think we'll also be working in the partnership I discussed earlier with Arlington Police to get some of that data that we aren't capturing in the VDOT data, and then seeing how that full picture looks like when you plot everything out together. And we'll also have our staff be reading the comments that you all are providing. When you click on the map, it will give you categories, which can be an easy way to show like, hey, this is a pedestrian issue right here. But if you have further details that you want to share, you can add that in the little chat or in the little comment box, and we'll be reading those comments. So We'll also have staff kind of learning about the issues at certain locations and then flagging areas where there might be a lot of the same types of comments in one area, or we're seeing trends or patterns on that systemic level. So it's going to provide a lot of information to us, and we really want you to share this out as widely as you can, because the more people we hear from, the more we're going to know. And we want, we don't want all of our pins in one place. So please share far and wide, because that will just make our information better and make our analysis better.
Okay, going to jump into another question about the sort of results of this engagement and ultimately the Vision Zero plan itself. We got a question about how is Arlington going to treat the implementation phase of Vision Zero with regard to developing a great plan? What's the next step?
So we will have in the plan a bunch of action items, and there will be a lead organization for each one, and then supportive organizations, and that could be departments in Arlington, bureaus within Arlington County government, and so we'll know who's responsible, and we'll also have basic timelines and reporting metrics to go with those. So every year we will produce a Vision Zero annual report, and that will provide information, quantitative and qualitative, to let you know what we've been up to and how we've been working towards each item. And we'll also have our crash dashboard, so you can see, it's not going to be in real time, but it'll be very up to date. So you'll be able to see kind of how we're stacking up to our commitments, and we'll have the crash data so you can kind of see different aspects of it and kind of understand also what we're seeing, and hopefully as our plan is in play and we continue to move forward on each of the action items, we start to see those crashes go down. So we'll be reporting out on everything we're doing, and then you'll also be able to see the data as well.
Thanks, Christine. All right, we've gotten some very good technical questions here in the comments as well. I think there's a lot of follow-up here on some very specific issues. I've seen the NACTO guide referenced at least once, which is the National Association of City Transportation Officials, of which Arlington County is a member. So I know we've got a really engaged group of folks here paying attention to the Vision Zero program. I don't want to get too far into the details of individual things, but we are responding to each individual item and comment directly. Let's see here. I'm going to try and paraphrase this question from Ben Nichols here a little bit. When is good enough for Vision Zero actions? What is going to be our threshold for saying, okay, we've done the work necessary to solve that particular safety issue or systemic safety issue? I think this is definitely partly a technical question and partly a philosophical question, and I wanted to sort of do it justice, Ben. But I'll leave that sort of phrasing for Dan and Christine here.
I'll start off. What it sounds like is, what are we trying to achieve ultimately? And ultimately, obviously, we're trying to achieve 0 fatalities and serious injuries. So, when we look at things, if we see a condition and how it might be before, we look at it after. If we see that if something we're deploying or something we're doing is getting us towards that goal, then I I think it's safe to say that it's good. Now the question is it sufficient? Is, you know, there might be things that we have to do that are a little bit of, you know, of a pilot. You know, whether we pilot things that we do within the organizations to help us be able to better respond to things, or whether it's projects. I think there is a period that we will have to look at the results of piloting different things that we do through Vision Zero and to assess whether it's effective enough. So ultimately, the test is, you know, we want to reach that goal of 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries. But it might not be immediate, and we have to see if the things we're doing are helping us achieve that. And we will do that through piloting and assessing how we pilot projects.
All right, thank you, Dan. Okay. Let's see here. How will Vision Zero activities address positive social and behavioral norms around safe streets and sidewalks, trails, in addition to engineering and infrastructure approaches? It's a good question on balancing the culture of safety element with the infrastructure elements of Vision Zero.
Yes, and you've seen our goals, and our goals really, you know, span the 5 E's, you know, engineering, engagement, education, enforcement, and evaluation. And you know, education and engagement, I think, are going to be a big part of this, because we don't just want to focus in on our infrastructure and our design, and you know, we can engineer things as far as we possibly can to make them as intuitive and as safe as possible, which is what we always tried to do. But there's always the opportunity for user error, and there's always the opportunity for bad behavior. So we really want to make people understand how their actions affect others, and you know, to use the transportation network with respect, and you know, following the rules, and understanding that if everyone follows those rules, then we can all get to where we're going safely. So, you know, we're thinking about different ways to reach out with schools and partner with APS to be able to ingrain that from a young age. And then we're also working with partners, you know, like our Uber, Lyft, scooter companies to have their user base kind of take on that same ethos, and also working with you know, each of the different committees and commissions and interest groups and advocacy organizations in Arlington to help get their communities aware and involved. So we're going to come at this from all different angles, and we hope that when people see Vision Zero, they can associate it with that culture of safety, and with the feeling that we are all, you know, responsible for safety, and we all play a role. So that's one of our big missions, and we hope that we can accomplish that.
Thanks, Christine. All right, let's see here. You'll have to forgive me. I am still adapting to our new virtual meeting reality. So we got a question about working with mapping programs to reduce preferred routing of drivers through neighborhood streets. And I think that is a good question, because we know that technology does have an impact on how people use our transportation network. We've seen that with Google Maps and with other programs. But we also know that the transportation network is a public utility for people to use. So how do we balance sort of the impacts of technology with with the safety goals that we have for Vision Zero, and also recognition that we want people to be able to use the street safely in whichever mode they are using. We're mute. One of us may be answering and is muted.
So can Arlington work with mapping programs to reduce preferred routing of drivers through neighborhood streets? I don't know the answer to this question. I think that is something we'll have to think about. As Nate mentioned, it's a balance. And you know, we want to make neighborhood streets slow streets. You know, we don't want lots of cars, you know, passing through where families are
at high speeds.
Yeah, at high speeds, exactly. So you know, I understand, and I'm not exactly sure what our options are here. You know, speed is one of the things that we're focusing on through the Vision Zero program, and you know, we can look into strategies like this, but yeah, just anyone else want to?
I do.
I'll chime in. You know, one of the things that we are, you know, we're talking about in terms of data for Vision Zero is better, more quality data, so we see where there are issues that need to be addressed, and that includes speed. You know, speed is one of those factors that we see as critical towards as a contributing factor in serious and fatal injuries. So, you know, that's like, you know, we might not be talking about it directly, but we're talking about surrogate ways of trying to address issues that drive risk up for people. And so by doing a more comprehensive data collection efforts on speed and traffic data that we hope to undertake as part of Vision Zero are ways that we can address some of those things that we see that might be anomalies or creating situations that we want to reduce risk. So yeah, I think that we have to explore the question in terms of you know, what are the ability to work with some of those mapping agencies, but you know, we do recognize too that, you know, the streets are public right away, and we want to make them as safe as possible. And I think that there's ways we can do that when we understand what conditions are there. But we'll have to investigate in terms of what we can do beyond that in terms of mapping solutions.
I will add to that, one of the, I think, most unique Vision Zero solutions with regard to mapping software that I have heard about is that, and they do have a little bit more clout than I think we do here in Arlington, but the New York City Department of Transportation actually worked with Google Maps to prioritize right turns over left turns as a Vision Zero initiative. So that's just an example of a really unique partnership and sort of recognizing the power of technology to influence safety on the New York City streets. There's a good question here. Who are the champions of Vision Zero among county leaders? And I think I can speak for the project team when I say the county board has made this project a priority. And one of the reasons why we're able to engage with you today is that you know, even in, you know, with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, the board clearly indicated to the county manager and to our staff here in transportation that Vision Zero is a priority they want to see continue, even if we have to adapt our engagement methods and sort of make things work to get it done. I've definitely seen that support coming down from our elected officials. I will also say internally that as someone who's worked in transportation for quite a while, this is a really engaged group of staff members. I'm relatively new to the county. I've been working in the transportation division for just under a year. But I've been really impressed with my new colleagues. This is a group of transportation professionals that really does get it, and they're working hard to make sure that Vision Zero is not just like a standalone plan, but something that is really integrated across the mission of our division and something that's that really impacts how we do business on a day-to-day basis. I let other folks jump in, but just from my perspective, having worked on a couple of other Vision Zero programs in the country, I'm pretty excited about what I've seen so far.
I can jump in too, Nate. You know, Vision Zero is asking of all of us to be champions. So everybody in the county is a champion for Vision Zero, and that's part of the purpose of the plan, is to make everyone in the county a champion for transportation safety. We have partners outside of the county that we work with that we will ask the same of. We are asking everybody to be a champion for safety. And that's the real way that we achieve the goals of Vision Zero. So with that said, I mean, that's the kind of philosophy that we're trying to embrace, that we're trying to see as a kind of shift in culture for everybody. But as Nate said, you know, most of the people on this call, you know, the county staff are the champions. It comes from our DOT director, Dennis Leach, you know, through all the organizations within DOT that are embracing the components of the action plan. But it even extends beyond that. And, you know, there's other departments and agencies all across the county that are working very closely together to try to make Vision Zero a reality. Nate, do we have another question?
Working on that right now. I think this is actually a pretty good connection. Another question from Ben. Will Vision Zero try to systemically reduce vehicle miles traveled in the county? Obviously, making the injury rate go down can help, but multiplying across a lower VMT would help too. So I think I'll hand that off to you, Christine.
Yes. So, you know, we are a very multimodal county. We've got people traveling in all sorts of ways, and you know, we know that if we have fewer cars on the road, we have a less likelihood of having crashes. So yes, one of our strategies as part of Vision Zero is to encourage people to use other modes like walking, biking, transit, other forms of rolling. You know, we find that when people are out using these other modes, they not only, you know, have there's health benefits to getting out on your feet or on a bike, but there's also you also get the perspective of using that mode, and you understand, you know, the need for cars to yield or to leave space for you while you're biking, and you get that perspective, and that carries over when you drive as well. So there's lots of benefits to using other modes, you know, not only reducing VMT, but hopefully it results in some behavior changes as well. So we're hoping that that can be kind of a holistic way to get people to be thinking more safely and driving more safely, and hopefully getting cars off the road, because that's a great, you know, benefits for the environment. There's all sorts of benefits that we can associate with, you know, getting out of cars. And we're hoping that the Vision Zero program can help encourage that multimodal behavior, teach people how to use bikes, and you know, how to walk safely and follow the rules of the road, and that will hopefully carry over into just making it a safer environment for everybody. So, you know, that's something that we're definitely looking at, and we're hoping to achieve a lower VMT. I'll let anyone else add on that.
The other perk of the lower VMT is it's a good sign that there's a robust opportunity for other options. And I think one of the things that we often overlook is that our transit system is often the safest way we can get around on surface streets. And Arlington County is very fortunate to have a lot of obviously Metro Rail. We've got the Metro bus system, and we've also got our very robust local bus system. And turns out buses are one of the safest modes of transit for traveling on surface streets. So, you know, increasing our mode share on the bus is a great way to increase safety and can be a Vision Zero goal. I want to point out really quick that one of our meeting attendees is our Deputy County Manager, Michelle Cowan, and she dropped a comment in the chat that I've just published to say that this is indeed a very high priority for the County Manager's office. We appreciate that vote of confidence, and thank you, Michelle, for your time and for being out here. With the Q&A really quick, I'm going to add one more question. I think we're going to wrap up at 8 o'clock. So if you have any further questions, go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box now. We'll get to them. I know that a couple of our team members have some family commitments to meet later this evening, as I'm sure we all do. So go ahead and do that quick. Boy, got a couple of good ones here. I think we'll wrap up with these last two. The first one, how will the planning office, our CPHD division, consider the Vision Zero impacts of development? For example, the proposed changes to the VRE station in Crystal City will likely result in train commuters on the ramp to the Crystal City connector. So what can you talk about from our interdepartmental work with CPHD, Christine?
Yes, we are talking a lot about the site plan development process. And, you know, that's something we would like to be more multimodal in the future. So, you know, in the past, a lot of development decisions are made just by looking at the vehicle traffic impact. But in Arlington, we know that that is only a part of the story. We have lots of people walking and biking and taking the bus places. So we are working to improve that process and ensure that when we are talking with developers and we are planning new sites, that they take into consideration the infrastructure improvements for bicycle, pedestrian, and other modes. And that way, you know, when a site is built, it will be accessible and it will be safe for all these modes as well. So that we are on that topic and coordinating very heavily with our partners in the planning department, as well as in development services and, you know, throughout DES. It's a great question.
Okay, next question. This is we're going to get into the weeds just a little bit here, but I think this is relevant. We've got a question here saying, given the fire code has been used in many prominent examples to degrade bicycle infrastructure, will the 20-foot clear space rule be reevaluated as part of Vision Zero's policy review? This is, again, very specific.
Yeah, I'll start by taking that one on. This is Dan. Vision Zero is looking at new ways to looking at transportation. A lot of what is in the fire code is state law. So we are constrained there, but it doesn't really mean that we can't think of other ways of really enhancing transportation. That's something that we always look to, and I know that some people have maybe commented on NACTA, the National Association of City Transportation Officials. We're members, Arlington is. I sit on several of their committees, and that's something that we talk about in some of these things and figure out ways to really provide the best multimodal environment for people, but we have to understand there are some so I think that probably for the short term for Vision Zero is not something that we will be able to achieve, but I think the philosophy and the thought behind it is really important, and we want to make sure that our action items address the philosophy of looking at new ways to explore transportation. And there are maybe some things that come through that we decide are kind of more programmatic type things that we need to look at, so that we ensure that we are following that and embracing that philosophy that will drive us to zero fatalities and serious injuries.
Okay, I think we're going to wrap up with this last question here. Under the current pandemic, there is low confidence in safe transit. How will Vision Zero Arlington increase its focus in getting folks out of cars at this time? And I want to address a couple of things in this question first. The first is that I think we've seen a couple of studies from a few countries during the global pandemic that have shown that with proper safety behavior, including masks, using sanitizer, rear door boarding, and just sort of being conscientious as you would in any other public space, I don't think they've actually been able to attribute a COVID-19 transmission to transit ridership specifically. The other thing too, and I do want to point this out, is that Vision Zero is not exclusively about getting people out of cars. It's about providing safe transportation for you regardless of how you choose to get around. And we want to make sure that we show you this because people in cars are often the folks most impacted by the safety statistics. Specifically for severe injuries. This is an issue for folks as they get around if they choose to drive as well. So I do think we want to talk about safety and transit, especially in these times, but I don't want to use Vision Zero to paint a picture of transit as being unsafe for public health reasons. I'm not sure that that's supported by the data. Okay. One of the things I will bring up, though, that we've seen in nationwide crash statistics is that we have definitely seen an increase in, not specific to Arlington, but an increase nationwide in roadway fatalities. And so we're very conscious of that, despite the fact that vehicle miles traveled has gone down. We've seen an increase, I think, in particular in speed-related crashes. So the pandemic is showing us a couple of other things that are transportation-related. So we are paying close attention, and I think, Christine, you can confirm this to the current traffic conditions as well.
Yeah. Yes, that is all true. I don't have much to add to that one, Nate.
Okay. All right, well, we want to thank you all very much for your time tonight. Recording of this presentation and Q&A will be posted on the county's website shortly, along with the transcript. You will also be able to find the engagement form and clickable map on the county's project website for Vision Zero. That's right there at the header of the transportation website at transportation.arlingtonva.us. And if you took the time to tune in tonight to this public meeting, we would ask that you also share this engagement effort with folks in your community across Arlington. Thank you very much for helping us get a lot of public feedback in our form and our clickable map. It's going to make a big difference and really shape how we move our action plan forward. So on behalf of the transportation team, thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you hopefully soon.
Thanks.